we're all grown-ups. I'm Gareth, and I've been making pots for about 200 years now. I don't know if you're aware of my work, if you've seen stuff online or in the flesh. What I do is ridiculously involved. It's preposterous. It involves lots of different materials, lots of alteration. In fact, what happens on the wheel is only a very small part of what I do. The vast majority of what happens, and there are a lot of happenings that go on with my things, well, the majority of it happens after the wheel. So the wheel tends to be for me a place where I make components, which are then subsequently stuck together into vessels that are redolent of many things. I'm a big fan of ceramic history, for example. So I suppose if I were to boil the whole damn thing down for you, the biggest question for me is, how does material become emotion? That's to me, a particularly human quality. We have this remarkable capacity of the most vivid mental capacity to conjure images in our minds. Many people refer to it, and I do, as the poetic imagination. And the stimulant, the trigger to aesthetic arousal, to arousal generally, what actually makes us go, whoa, what is that happens? Particularly in the realm of art, though, you stand in front of some artworks and they just get you here. And you just don't know what to do with yourself. What is going on? So in all of the things that I make, that essential mystery is at the heart. So I hope that initial thought gives you a small window into where I'm coming from. So there's such a lot going on right now here, but it's not actually just here. It's actually here, and it's in my butt, and it's in the flat of my left foot. It's transference of and understanding of bodily energy. That's constantly interesting to me, and I think it's the same with any skill. The acquisition of skill is it's a laudable goal, and it's very challenging. But skills aren't often thought of at a sensory level, and I think craftspeople will probably struggle to talk about that. That's why I go there. They probably struggle to talk about what the material is saying. It's not that it's speaking in language, it's speaking in quality, it's speaking in tactility, in touch. Touch is incredibly eloquent. Can I put that on there? Would that be in your field of vision? It might protect you from being sprayed.
Probably not.
I don't create that much muck, actually. I used to make terracotta gardenware for a living when I was in my 20s. So a lot of my acquaintance with throwing really came from that period. I worked at Recklesham Pottery when it was still a terracotta gardenware pottery. I was one of the last full-time potters to be employed there. It closed actually 2 or 3 years after I left, finally. I thought I could throw when I left college, and that experience very quickly dispossessed me of that notion. Because as I said at the beginning, as long as I'm bumping up against the outside edge of my understanding, I know I'm in a good place. I know that I'm still learning. I like that bit. I do love it. I kind of hate it too.
What shape are you making
I'm going to make one of those components that down there.
Oh, right.
So essentially it's a bowl, but it's not a bowl. If I were to make a bowl, I'd put an awful lot more finesse into it and finish it, but it's a raw component, and it's going to change so much that to faff around too much at this stage would be unnecessary effort and labour. That moment is what I'm in it for, throwing. It's that. And many throwers in the room, or people who've had a go, have you experienced that in its way, that moment where you know you've got it and it's just moving under your fingers? I'm not really pulling this at the moment, I'm just sort of levelling it out. It's necessary to penetrate the surface and really compress and lift. That's a mistake a lot of people make that lead them to that process of it getting very tired, is because they're just tinkering about on the surface. And there isn't enough happening.
Deeper down.
It's within the substance of the section of the wall. That's where it all happens. Here we go, now it's dancing. So this is the point where it might be quite exciting. And this is the point where that perverse part of me is inclined to take more risk in front of people. Here we go. Ah, there you go. I told you. I hacked this off its back yesterday and firmed it up a bit. I've got a blowtorch here as well. I don't know if you saw earlier on, which I may use, I may not, I don't know. The blowtorch is a beautiful, sensitive tool. It's not just a... It's actually very sensitive. And it's become a really important part of what I do. It enables me to speed up time, which is handy and practical. The lights keep going on and off. But also, it enables me to develop surfaces that I wouldn't otherwise be able to do. I'm still very bound up with formal anthropomorphic pottery language. It's really still very important to me. The idea of, the belly, the foot, the lip, that anthropomorphic language that has accompanied the vessel throughout human history. It's there for a reason, I think. Because pots are close to the body. Always have been, always been associated with bodily function, with food or with waste or with with the transport of foodstuffs, with the enjoyment of foodstuffs, and also there is a bodily quality to the vessel. So consequently, I'm still quite bound up with the idea of a pot having a foot, having a shoulder, I love the language. I'm still very attached to it. And so many of the things that I make, not all, but many of the things I make are still bound up with that. But having said that, then I'm still kind of dissatisfied with orthodox outcomes. There's something restless in me. Always has been, ever since I first started working with clay. I think, what else can I do with that? What if is a great question. So what if it came off the ground in a different way than an orthodox turned football? I just hacked up these arcs of clay off of a wedged lump. I just hacked them out and then cut them. There's plenty of room for an undiluted, direct physicality as well in material handling that I'm attracted to because it has an energetic voice that carries through to the finished object. Does that make sense? So in a sense, I leave an evidence trail behind me, which anyone who encounters it is at liberty to interpret however they want. I'm quite attracted to the idea of someone coming across a thing that I have done and looking at it, kind of scratching their head and looking at it kind of as a geologist might look at a cliff and reading the layers or reading back through its mini history. Oh, that's a footprint, by the way. On there. It's a boot. It's this boot, right? I'll do that from time to time. Again, there's no great mystery to that. A very important part of what I do is this simple statement: I was here. Bit of slop. Bit of slop. It's all mud pies, isn't it? Yes. That's about scoring. It's all in the wiggle. Witness the wiggle. Here we go. It's deeply technical. I'm doing it right now. You're getting it. It's the wiggle. I'm wiggling, it's moving, it's gripping, it's gripping, it's gripping, it's gripped. Tactile material knowledge, again. It's all there, under the fingers. We just gotta listen. So this is the wiggle, people. I probably won't come back to this, actually, now, having put a foot on it, of sorts. I'm not even going to care too much about how it proportionally leaves the ground. This is going to be heavier now. Might be better to do it with two people. Yeah, I know.
Which way are you going?
I'll go. See, easy. My marvellous assistant, Ben Boswell, thank you. Well, yeah. How a thing leaves the ground, and it's all there. Nothing, I maintain absolutely nothing that I do is particularly outrageous at all when you compare it to what's gone on in ceramic history. But I suppose it's a reclaiming of, maybe a reinterpretation of, I don't know, I haven't got it all worked out, of an energetic response to the thousands of makers who've gone before me, in a sense. I'm cherry picking the beginnings of a little groove in the top edge, so that once the top sits on the bottom, it sits like that, and then you compress the groove. That one's got a little groove in it down there. Hopefully it'll line up. But there's a surprising amount of tolerance. If I can get them within a centimetre or so, it'll it works out. 1:30-ish? Ish? If you gotta go, seriously, I won't be embarrassed. If you gotta go, go. Don't worry about me.
I'm not going to miss this moment.
Here we go. Well, I'm going to see if I might have to. I might have to.
Wow. Oh, wiggle. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more or less there. It's more or less there. It's about a centimetre out. I brought the wrong wire. Here we go. Yeah, I did bring the wrong wire. It's too bloody short. I brought my longer one. There we go. Well, that's another one of those sounds. Ceramic sounds. I'm also folding in the inner flange, for want of a better word. Now I'm very interested also in the equator region. I'm not done with that yet. For years and years I find myself still homing in on the point of union as a region where exciting things can happen, unusual things can happen. And I usually wear goggles. Always wear goggles when you use a blowtorch, because sometimes you get little bits spitting off. And I didn't bring them with me. Foolish boy. But the blowtorch is also about actively generating texture and aesthetic quality. It's a terrific tool. So now what? I have now, from the act of throwing, there is necessarily an amount, a thickness, particularly around about here. It's about there, at this point here. Yeah? Down here, it's about there. And then down there it's a little bit thicker because I threw this component with the knowledge that it would have to hold the weight of the whole thing in the kiln. Bear in mind this is porcelain. Porcelain is a bitch and then you die. In the kiln it becomes as almost as floppy and wobbly, pyroplastic they call it, as it is on the wheel, almost. Play del Bovary, one of my favourite pottery quotes. I'll misquote her, or I'll paraphrase her, but she said, a resilient attitude to unpleasant shocks is of more use to the potter than a library of encyclopedias of knowledge. A resilient attitude to unpleasant shocks. I've actively cultivated that for myself over the years because I build in a process of rather masochistic, unpleasant shocks, and they can be very unpleasant. Things can kind of backfire on me, but then it's necessary also, which is another quite hard learned thing for me. God, it's a tough lesson, that one. And ceramics is a bastard for just throwing that in your face every single bloody time. Now and then you get what you want, and that's not actually necessarily what you need. It's a form of madness, I tell you. What is he doing? So how do I convert that into words? I don't bloody know. But I don't want to burn your lens. My every encounter with surface is driven and informed in some way. The random has its part. Accident. I mentioned accident earlier on. I showed you it. I didn't intend that. It was almost embarrassing. But when accidents happen, if you go back to what I was saying about the kiln, if we can cultivate an approach that allows us to unjudgmentally bear witness to them, rather than beat ourselves up with, what use is that? Where does that get us? How does that take us forward? So that's the kind of thing. Yeah, breaking the surface is also a nice thing to do. It's sort of the small taboo of piercing the skin.
Can't see.
Not all of you could. They were doing it back in the Renaissance. I don't see any differentiation between this kind of exploration and the El Greco. Look closely at his surfaces. They're a battleground. Monet. Oh, the lilies are so restful. It's a bloody battleground. Look at his surfaces. He's gouging, he's twisting, he's scraping. His fingernails are in there. His thumbs are in there. The brushes are daubed and punched, and also stroked. This is material quality and the role that it has in aesthetic practice. And I don't make any differentiation between this kind of inquiry and the kind of inquiry that I witness in every museum in the world. I sense a great kinship with these people, because they are out there at the very edge of their process. If you look very closely at El Greco's paintings, he was at the extreme outside edge of what he felt was possible.